Good evening and welcome. Tonight we're going to be going over the history and geography of Burkina Faso. Burkina Faso is a very interesting country. The name is actually two words from two different languages from the two main ethnic groups of the country, and combined it means the land of incorruptible people. Very interesting name there. Burkina Faso is in Western Africa. I got a pencil so I can show you its borders. I have it kind of super zoomed in so you can see more details of the map because it's pretty small compared to some of the major countries around it. So this big border right here is with Mali. This is Niger, Benin, Togo, Ghana, and the Ivory Coast or Côte d'Ivoire. Burkina Faso sits on the Sahel line, which you can physically see in this map here. All this area down here is green, and all this area up here is orange, because this part, as you can see here, is part of the Sahel, which is the lower region of the Sahara Desert, where it's not so sandy deserty, it's more shrubby and dry. And this area down here is a lot wetter, more forested, much better for growing crops and things like that. And as you can tell, the majority of the population lives in this southern area, although there are many towns and things like that up in the northern area up here. The capital city is right in the middle. It's Ouagadougou. It's a fantastic name. Another major city would be Bobo Dioulasso, right here. And the main predominant geographic features of Burkina Faso are its rivers. You can see lots of rivers on this map. There's also lots and lots of lakes all throughout this lower region of Burkina Faso, but you can't see them on this map. But you can see all the rivers. So right here you can see the Black Volta. Over here is the, make sure I get it right. Yeah, up here is the White Volta, and then flowing into it, this river over here is the Red Volta. So they're all named that because they flow into Lake Volta down here in Ghana. And yeah, this area is really interesting. Lots of typical African animals, like, you know, the lions, elephants, all the stereotypical African animals you can think of. Lots of also national parks. I did mention the W Park when I covered Niger and Benin. It flows over to here in Burkina Faso. And what's really interesting, I think, about more of this area down over here is there's lots of really interesting rock formations. They are Precambrian types of rocks, which means that when it was ancient man times, even dinosaur times, those rocks were there. And those kind of rocks have since kind of eroded and worn away, but those are still there. They're not listed here, but some of them would be the Sindhu Peaks or the domes of Fabadougou. I will show you some of them after I go over its history. I'll get my tablet out and I'll take you on a little virtual tour of Burkina Faso. But yeah, lots of interesting landscapes. And you know what's interesting, I think, is that there's so much water and wet areas throughout Burkina Faso, but they're very prone to droughts and famines because you know, water is only so reliable, and mainly because the country is highly undeveloped. Most people just live on subsistence farming. But we'll talk about that in its history. Let's just dive right in. Also, personal note, I'm sorry about this. It's really gross. I scratched myself with my long, pretty fingernails. My skin's really delicate on my fingers because of my eczema. But anyway, if you see that, don't be alarmed. I'm okay. It's literally just a scratch. But anyway, Burkina Faso's history. So the earliest humans would have arrived in this area between 14,000 BCE and 5,000 BCE. The first farms were set up by the year 2600 BCE. And the earliest big culture in the region was the Bura people. And what's really interesting about the Bura people is that they were really into smelting and forging. They had a huge iron age between the 3rd and 13th century CE, which is really cool, I think. Not a lot of ancient peoples in this area were into that. They had their own industries, but that one's pretty cool. The most dominant ethnic group in what is now Burkina Faso is the Mossi people. They arrived sometime between the 8th and 11th centuries, and they established their own kingdoms throughout the area. And they actually went to war against the Songhai Empire, since Bamako's right here, and Mali, and that was really the heart. And Timbuktu's just up here. That was really the heart of the Songhai Empire. So they actually raided Timbuktu at one point, and lost a huge battle to Sani Ali, one of the great leaders of the Songhai Empire. But anyway, they also founded what is now Ouagadougou. They started that city. But there's lots of other different peoples. There's like Fulani people. The Bobo people formed Bobo Dioulasso. There's it's considered a nation of minorities, since it's like entirely built up of cultures that are minorities in all the surrounding countries. But yeah, the Mossi people would have been the most dominant and are still the most predominant culture in Burkina Faso today. So let's jump ahead to the 1890s. As we all know, if you've seen any of my Africa videos, all of the major European powers got together and just decided what parts of Africa they were going to conquer. And France got a big chunk of West Africa. So in 1896, they just, ding dong, we live here now. And made this area a protectorate of France. By 1898, they had fought against all the tribes that were like, you can't come in, this is our land, and had conquered the territory. They implemented a lot of French culture and the language, which French is still the predominant language of Burkina Faso today. But what really was enough for the people of the region was, in World War I, many people were drafted to fight the war. And these people are like, listen, we are just people in clay huts living on farms. We don't want to be a part of World War I. So the Volta Boni War broke out between 1915 and 1917. It was a big battle of many ethnic groups coming together to fight against the French, but the French were ultimately victorious. In 1919, in order to not have that happen again, France decided to make it official up here, and they created the colony of Upper Volta, or French Upper Volta as it's known now in history. You'll find out why in a minute. They built a lot of infrastructure, and they set up cotton plantations, because Burkina Faso doesn't have really any natural resources other than gold, which you could find all throughout this area of West Africa, so that's not particularly special. So they brought in cotton, and while the cotton industry is still big today, it was not very profitable for France. It basically failed as a colony, so France broke it apart and absorbed the areas into parts of Ivory Coast and Niger, just all their territories here. But that was reversed in 1947 with the formation of the French Union. So after World War II, when France literally put itself back together, the French Union formed here in West Africa out of all the colonies that were owned by France in order to start the process of independence. So Upper Volta was reestablished as a colony so that, it could move towards self-governing, which it did in, 1958. And then independence came on August 5th, 1960. The government, it was a brand new government, starting out as it could on its own, but Unfortunately, that wasn't enough. There was a coup in 1966 and two more later in 1980 and 1982. Basically, the government's, and there would be a coup, implement a new government, new constitution, basically combining democracy with like a military dictatorship in a way. It obviously wouldn't work out, so then someone else would overthrow and try. But it became very different in 1983 because the leader of the area became Thomas Sankara. And I can't stress enough how much Burkinabe people loved Thomas Sankara and still do to this day. The international airport here is the Thomas Sankara International Airport. He was just a very beloved leader. He's the one that renamed the area because it was still known as Upper Volta, not French Upper Volta because it was in France. Now it's just Upper Volta. He's the one that renamed it to Burkina Faso. He implemented a lot of women's rights in terms of words I don't want to mention on YouTube, but like mutilation and things of that nature. But that was very, very progressive for the time in this part of Africa. He also implemented mass vaccinations of many of the diseases that float around this area of West Africa, like yellow fever and malaria. He built a lot of infrastructure. He did a lot to help like the environment. He just set out to do as much good as possible. He even lived in basic poverty because he kept giving away all his money to people who needed it more. I can't stress enough how much, like, literally researching this and reading like notes and stuff from people who live here, they say Thomas Sankara is the best thing that ever happened to this country. Very sadly, he was killed in a coup in 1987. The new leader was Blaise Compaoré, who basically went and undid all of Sankara's policies, which plunged Burkina Faso back into a state of underdevelopment, which it's still in today. It still hasn't recovered from that. Many protests sprung up against him. He kept magically getting reelected, mainly because nobody went to go vote for him because everyone knew he was going to win anyway. A big protest broke out in 2011 after a young student was killed in a protest by the police. But the 2014 protests were huge, to the point where they took over the airport and they burned down the parliament building. Eventually, it got so big that Compaoré resigned. A provisional government was set up. And somehow in 2015, there was another coup, but those leaders were like, our bad. And they gave the power back to the provisional government and were just like, forget we were here, basically. Very interesting. You don't see that a lot in military coups. But ever since 2015, it's been very politically stable in terms of elections and leaders and things like that. The only real instability has come from terrorist attacks from an Al-Qaeda branch in West Africa. In 2016, there were a few big ones, and the last major one was on June 4th, 2021, which was like the worst terrorist attack Burkina Faso had ever seen. They attacked a village on the border of Niger here, and many, many people lost their lives during that. But that is something that the government is working on. Burkina Faso has a long way to go in terms of development and progress, so what's exciting is that we'll get to witness that. So let me show you what the country looks like. It's so beautiful. Let's go look at the tablet. So welcome to Burkina Faso. Let me move this out the way so you can see the country a little better. There we go. Let me zoom this out actually a little bit more so you can really see where Burkina Faso is located in Africa, right there in Western Africa. Let me take you on a little tour. You can also see the line here where it goes from green to brown, the deserty region there, the Sahel. So let's explore Burkina Faso. Check out some destinations. We're going to start off in Ouagadougou. Now, there's like little to no street view in Burkina Faso. I found one good spot to show you guys, so I'm going to show you this slideshow up here. This is a big monument in like the heart of the city here. And let's find another good one. This is the big cathedral. This area of West Africa, particularly like Burkina Faso, Mali, has a lot of this red, like mud brick architecture. It's really interesting. Check this out. A cool church with this big statue of Mary and Jesus. That's really neat. We have, oh, look at this green. Another very beautiful, prominent mosque. The little market down there. And what else? More beautiful green. I think this is a train station. Doesn't it look like a train station? Look at this sculpture. There's a much more famous train station in Bobo Dioulasso that the French built. But in a nutshell, that's Ouagadougou. You can kind of see the type of terrain that it's in. Let's go check out Bobo Dioulasso. Now, the main feature is this, the Grand Mosque, in this absolutely stunning architecture. I'm so obsessed with it. This is such a beautiful building, and from like this picture you can tell it's being really well preserved, which is wonderful. That's so important. I love it. It's so cool. Let's see. I think next I'm going to show you some photos from their national parks is next on this little slideshow. All right, I'm going to take you to the W National Park, which, as you can see, there's obviously no street view because there's no streets. Let me show you. Absolutely beautiful. There's a monkey. Look at this. Wouldn't you want to spend a night in a baobab tree house? How wonderful would that be? Or a fun little hut like this. What a fantastic place to go, like on safari. This must be the Niger River. Beautiful elephants as well. And some of their more traditional huts that they build. Alright, let me show you Banfora, which the city itself isn't super remarkable. It's the towns in Burkina Faso are pretty typical. Pretty typical, but around Banfora, what I want to show you are the rock formations. So let me find them on here first. Over here, the domes of Fabadougou. Let it load, and then I'll show you something else that's really cool. Is it gonna go? Hello? The domes of Fabadougou, please. Oh, no. There we go. So when I was trying to say Precambrian, like ancient times, this is what I mean. It literally looks like it's from like a different planet, basically, which Precambrian times compared to now basically was. Let's find a good one. Let's see. So neat, all the layers. Oh, pretty. Here we go. Look, he's cool. A lot of them are like domed and rounded from, here we go, from the years and years of erosion. They're just big old round blobs. Aren't they cool? All this old limestone rock. Oh, how cute. So fascinating. And here's what I really want to show you. The Karfiguela Falls, which I'm going to read you a book tomorrow that's going to talk more about these places. But guess what? There is a street view here. Let me let it load. There it is. So we can go stand in this absolutely gorgeous waterfall. Check it out. You can see some more of this round limestone from before, but the water's flowing down. Can't you just feel it in your feet rushing? Absolutely beautiful little step waterfalls all the way down. So neat. I'm glad there is one good spot in Burkina Faso that I can actually take you to and put you inside. And let me see if there's any more cool Burkina Faso sites to show you. Bum, bum, bum. The forest, Laura Penny, and this is a pretty cool town. Let me show you a more northerly little town up here where you can really see like a physical change in the landscape, how it changes from green to brown, you know. It's about there where it happens. And you can see all the little lakes that dot the area. There's a Wackadoodle over there. It's just a really beautiful, interesting place, I think. Look at this landscape. All the hills and bumps. There's no 3D here, so I can't really show you just how hilly and bumpy it is, but all those years of just water flowing all around has created all these cool hills and little valleys with lakes and rivers. And of course, there's so much animal life all throughout here. It's a pretty remarkable place. I think it's very neat. Go back to 2D for a second. I think we're upside down. There we go. And I'm going to leave you there for the night. Alright, something's happening on my street with the police that's very, very loud. So I'm going to end it here before more cars roll up or something. But thank you very much for watching. I hope I found this video relaxing.